Inside Scoop Virginia, all the news Virginians want to know. Now here's the host of Inside Scoop Virginia, George Burke.
Welcome to Inside Scoop Virginia. My name is George Burke. I'm your host tonight. Later on in the program, we'll have Mark Sickles, who is the delegate from the 43rd District. I always like to have Mark on. He has a unique perspective, has been around for some time, and we'll talk some politics. But for the time being, let's focus on Tuesday night, June 10th. We have a congressional district primary in the 11th, in the 8th District, and in the 10th District. If you're watching this program, you probably live in one of those congressional districts. The 8th District, on the Democratic side, we have, and that's the one that I think is really going to make a difference, we have Moran and a guy named Matt, I think it's Famagetti, they call him Matt the Democrat. I think that race is, that primary is a slam dunk for Jim Moran. Jim has been a congressman for years now. He has a lot of respect in that district. He has the power of incumbency, and I think you will find that he will clean the floor with Matt. There was an interesting little aside the other day at the Northern Virginia Democratic Business Council breakfast. Matt, the Democrat, is in a wheelchair, and he's quite well-spoken. He's an attorney. Hasn't raised a lot of money, hasn't really got a lot of his message out to the voters, but he's certainly articulate and has his issues and his concerns. On the other hand, Jim Moran is a very accomplished candidate and campaigner. So Matt spoke first, and as is wont to happen often in primaries, you end up getting a lot of back and forth. Jim was very gracious toward him, and they have, I think, a reasonable relationship, and I hope that Matt will support Jim after June 10th. In the 10th District, we have Judy Fader and Mike Turner. Judy is a Georgetown professor. Both of them have been on this program. They've debated several times in the 10th District. Mike is a retired colonel in the Air Force. One of the things, he does some motivational speaking, and I think he's also a talking head on military issues for some of the cable networks. It's a very lopsided race when it comes to money. Judy Fader, who's running for the second time, raised, I think about $1 million. Mike Turner has raised about 1/10 of that. He's been working his way around the district, but I think ultimately on Tuesday, I suspect there'll be a low turnout, but on Tuesday, I think I can also predict in that race, and I predict that Judy Fader will be the winner of that primary to face Frank Wolf. Frank Wolf also has a primary against some guy, Vern something or another. I really haven't heard too much about him. Fern McKinley, I think it is. I predict on that side that Wolf, as the incumbent, will certainly win, and you will see a Fader-Wolf race between June 11th and Election Day in November. It'll be an uphill battle for Judy. That district is not as blue as certainly the 8th or as blue as we think the 11th is. Then we get to the 11th District, and I've had all of those candidates on this show individually. And I've also had them on last week. I hope you managed to catch the debate. If you didn't, Google video Inside Scoop Virginia, and you will find it, and I certainly urge you to watch it. It was very spirited. They all held their own. But in essence, well, there's 4 candidates in that race. I can say right now that it's truly a two-person race. I can't say a two-man race because Leslie Byrne is one of the the two titans, as I call them. It's Jerry Connolly and Leslie Byrne. Both of them are very accomplished politicians. Both of them have held public office. Jerry, of course, is the chairman of the board in Fairfax County. In his second term in that role, has been a district supervisor as well. Leslie Byrne held the 11th district seat for one term as a congressman, was beat by Tom Davis in the early 90s. She's also been a state senator and a state delegate. Both of them are well-spoken. Both of them are tough as nails, quite frankly. And it has been a very spirited race. They've both got some big endorsements. Leslie Byrne has Jim Webb endorsing her. Jerry Connolly has Tim Kaine endorsing him. The Post came out and endorsed Connolly on Saturday. The blogosphere, so to speak, has endorsed Leslie Byrne. They both have some endorsements of current and former elected officials, national figures and local figures. And the general consensus, I think, in the 11th district is that it's going to be close. Low turnout benefits Byrne, higher turnout benefits Connolly. Now, I don't want to discount that there are two other candidates in that race. You have Doug Deneny and Lori Alexander. They're both first-time candidates, both new to the political scene within Fairfax or Prince William counties, for that matter. Deneny is a naval commander. Lori Alexander's a physical therapist. Deneny, again, I think has raised close to $100,000, somewhere around $100,000, versus the $500,000 and $600,000 that Connolly and Byrne have raised. I would welcome your phone calls, 571-749-1166. If it's political, you can feel free to call me, ask me a question, or make a statement to that effect. As I said, we will have Mark Sickles on a little bit later. The 11th district race has, as I said, has been a knockdown, drag-out race. Much of it has been carried on both publicly in forums. I think they've done close to 20 forums around the 11th congressional district, which composes the whole center of Fairfax. It's the largest congressional district in Fairfax. And a third of the district is in Prince William. It's also the largest piece of Prince William that any of the congressional districts have. I can't handicap that one. As I said, I think it's close. Both Byrne and Connolly have some advantages. Again, if there is a large turnout, look for it to favor Connolly. If there is a lower turnout, look for it to favor Byrne. They've taken some pretty big shots at each other. A lot of the shots end up in the mail. I talked to my neighbors, I talked to my friends, and they have been inundated with mail in this race. One of the things about running in Northern Virginia is that television is extraordinarily expensive here, particularly for a primary. And when you spend money on television, you end up wasting most of every dollar because it goes to Maryland, it goes to the District of Columbia, and it goes beyond the district that you're running in. So the most economical way to do it is to phone call and also to do mail. And finally, I think many of you, if you are active voters who vote in primaries, have not only received mail and phone calls, but probably have had someone from one or both of the campaigns knocking at your door. Again, I don't want to discount the other two candidates in the race. but this is basically a primary where most of the people who vote are activists, and most of the people who will vote in the 11th district have circled their wagons around either Byrne or Connolly. I predict that Doug Deneny, you'll see him again running for some office in the future. He's grown immeasurably as a candidate in the weeks that he's been campaigning since about Election Day. He's been out there. But it's very hard for a newcomer in a primary situation where insiders and activists tend to dominate the voting. It's very hard for a newcomer to, in fact, really get a lot of traction when you've got two titans running. So that one, I'm not going to make a prediction, just because I think it's going to be too close. They're also both friends of mine. And as chair of the 11th Congressional District Committee of the Democratic Party of Virginia, I've tried very hard to be fair to both of them. And to all of the candidates for that matter, but particularly to the two of them, because one of them is going to be the nominee. And if it was a lopsided race, and if I thought that there would definitely be a victor coming out of this on Tuesday, I would make a call on it. But I just don't feel comfortable handicapping that one, because I don't like to handicap them unless I'm right. And on that one, I can't be sure I'm right. You talk to some people, they give the edge to Connolly. If you listen to the blogosphere, which has been very much pushing Byrne, they'll tell you it's going to be Byrne. So we'll see whether the party insiders and the media and the party observers or who tend to believe it's going to be Connolly, or whether the folks on the blogs who are very much for Byrne will, in fact, call the day. But wait to be seen. Senate race, we originally set up a statewide primary because just in case Mark Warner had a primary opponent, well, the Democrats were smart. We do not have a primary opponent. Tom Davis, who gave up the 11th district seat, originally was looking to run for that Senate seat and was all set to run against Gilmore. Unfortunately, Gilmore, the Republican Party opted to do a convention, and a convention is sort of an inside baseball type of operation. And Gilmore was favored in that convention, and much to everybody's surprise, he only won it by the skin of his teeth over Bob Marshall. So he's going into this general election campaign very much as a weakened candidate. Mark Warner has raised millions of dollars. He's proven that in the past that he can do it. And Jim Gilmore is hurting Buckaroo. I mean, he hasn't raised much money at all, just as he was unable to raise a lot of money for his failed bid for the Republican nomination for president. So I think he's wounded going into this race. Certainly anything can happen, but I will call that general election victory now for Mark Warner. We certainly welcome your calls, 571-749-1166. We're going to take a break here in about 15 seconds. I hope you'll hang on. Give me a call. Let's talk some politics. So we shall see you at the turnaround. As I said, later on in the program, we will have Mark Sickles. We'll talk about the transportation session upcoming in the legislature. Thanks for watching, and we shall see you at the turnaround.
Saving for retirement might be easy for some folk, but for others, it might take a little more work. And for those who haven't started, there are still things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss. To learn how to protect your hearing, visit asha.org.
You've probably heard about heart disease, but did you know that it's the #1 killer of women nationwide? Heart disease claims more lives each year than breast cancer, lung cancer, or strokes combined. But there are steps you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
Now back to the Inside Scoop, Virginia. Call in live and let your voice be heard. Here again, your host, George Burke.
Welcome back. We were talking about the U.S. Senate race in Virginia, and I'm telling you right now, I think that's Mark Warner's to lose, and Mark runs a very tight ship of a campaign. I had the pleasure of participating a bit in his testing of the waters for his presidential bid, and his people run a tight ship. They run a campaign as it should be run. Mark has positioned himself as he calls it, a radical centrist. And if you've seen, he's already got ads up on television, on broadcast television. If you've seen them, he's talking, he's got a number of different people, including some Republicans, singing his praises after he cleaned up Gilmore's mess. This could not be a more interesting Senate race. Jim Gilmore was the governor who immediately preceded Mark Warner. And if you all recall, Jim Gilmore got elected on his eliminate the car tax pledge. Well, he didn't quite succeed, and in the process, he left our state in a real fiscal morass. And it was Warner who was the guy who had to put it back and fix it. And he succeeded, and he pushed a tax increase which won bipartisan support and was able to leave our state, our Commonwealth, I should say, in pretty good fiscal order when he handed it over to Tim Kaine. Obviously, Governor Kaine has faced some issues, partially because the economy has gone to hell in a handbasket, quite frankly, but I think he's doing a pretty good job of steering this ship. The big issue that is left undone, and I will place a lot of that blame on the shoulders of the Republicans who still control the House of Delegates, is the transportation issue. They cobbled together a plan, as you know, that ended up getting portions of it, including the abuser fees, came under tremendous fire from the voters and the citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and other parts of it, the regional authorities were ruled unconstitutional by the state courts. So they're going back, in essence, to square one, and I'll be interested to see how what Mark thinks the chances are. Personally, I don't think they're going to get much accomplished down in Richmond when they meet later this month. The House and the Senate are divided in terms of the mechanism to raise funding. The Senate's raised the specter of increasing the gas tax. Well, there's a question of whether that's real popular right now, given how that gas is over $4 a gallon. There's talk of resurrecting the regional authorities. I saw an editorial that was in the Hampton Roads papers today suggesting that every road in and out of Hampton Roads is going to be a toll road. So there's still a lot of bickering and decision-making that needs to be done. And as much as we need to have some true, some solid transportation funding and so we can plan for the future, the fact is I'm not sure we're going to get it out of this section of the legislature. We get to the presidential race, and we now have a presumptive nominee on the Democratic side and a presumptive, well, the nominee in essence. He still has to officially get the nomination at the convention on the GOP side, and that's John McCain. On the Democratic side, we now have Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton on Saturday gave a speech that everybody has praised, etc., through her support, 100% behind Obama. And now it's our presumed presidential nominee's next effort to determine who his vice presidential candidate is going to be. There are a number of people out there, including myself, who think that the best choice for Obama for vice president would, in fact, be Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton got 17, 18 million votes, and she's a formidable person and a formidable candidate. I guess the biggest fear on the part of the Obama people is in some places she may upstage him, and that certainly is not the role of a vice president. But I think in terms of winning in November, that is a winning ticket. Some of the other tickets that have been discussed, I mean, Governor Kane has been discussed as a potential nominee. I think he'd be great, except what does he truly bring other than Virginia? And I don't want to see him leave the governorship early because he hands it over to a Republican, Bill Bolling, quite frankly. And Bolling had already decided that he was going to stay as lieutenant governor for another term. And we expect to see Bob McDonald running this time around in 2009 as the Republican. But if, in fact, the Kane was to leave, Bolling would automatically become the governor, and that could create some problems for people like me who are, Democrats in terms of what happens next. Jim Webb has also been discussed. Well, again, as much as I think he could help bring some of the veterans on board and again help in winning Virginia, which is a toss-up state this time around, it hasn't voted for a Democrat for president since 1964, and this may just be the first time in that period where we will vote for a Democrat, and the folks we've elected as electors to cast the Democratic votes in the Electoral College may get a chance to actually do a few minutes' work. Normally, they never get to meet because the Republican always wins. Again, I'd hate to see Jim Webb leave the Senate. He will be our senior senator at the end of this year, beginning in January, when John Warner formally leaves the Senate. John Warner's not running again, of course, and that's why you have Mark Warner and Jim Gilmore running for that seat. And so I would hate to see us lose our senior senator. He's made quite a mark, or our soon-to-be senior senator. He's made quite a mark politically and in terms of the issues that he has advanced within the Senate. You see him on the talk shows regularly. And he's, when I introduced him at the 11th District Convention, I noted that, certainly he's a U.S. Senator, but he's also an author. He's also very much an intellectual in terms of how he thinks and how he reviews things. He's not a knee-jerk vote for anybody, but I think he represents Virginia well, and I'd hate to see him leave. Finally, the third Virginian that's been under discussion as a potential vice presidential candidate is Mark Warner. And again, Mark's running for the Senate. I'd hate to see us mess up our opportunity to win that seat and have two Democratic senators from Virginia. Two Democratic senators who not only do I think will work well together, but both will carry themselves in a way that they're not a knee-jerk vote for anybody. I'm a pretty hardcore Democrat, But I have to say that over the years I've gained a great deal of respect for John Warner. He's done a lot for Virginia. There have been times when he has distanced himself from his own party and some of his own party candidates for what he felt was the greater good. And he has, ultimately proved himself to be a true statesman. And that's ultimately what we want in the United States Senate, our statesmen. And so I would hate to see Mark Warner give up the U.S. Senate race to run for Barack Obama. All of them would make good vice presidential candidates, but I think for us, it's selfish on my part and selfish on others that we just as soon keep them in Virginia at this point. There are a lot of other people thrown into the mix. They've talked about Bill Richardson. Bill Richardson has a tremendous amount of experience in a variety of different ways. He's been a congressman. He's been a cabinet secretary, secretary of energy. He's been an ambassador. But does he truly represent the kind of change that Barack Obama preaches? I'm not so sure of that. Bill Richardson is certainly Washington establishment. I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. But I just don't see him ultimately being the guy who gets the nod. Similarly, they're talking about Kathleen Sebelius, who is the governor of Kansas. Very competent woman, but what does she bring to the table? At this point, you don't look at it as what they bring to the table as a policy person. You have to look at it in terms of what they bring to the table in terms of winning states, because ultimately the presidential election will be about winning states and winning the electoral votes in those states. And I just don't see a lot. A couple of people have raised the name of Janet Napolitano. Again, a very competent governor from Arizona. But again, is she going to carry Arizona? Arizona is McCain's home state. I'm not so sure that she would help that, and whether or not someone should be chosen because they can, fight McCain in his home state doesn't strike me as a real plus. So when you look at all of these and other candidates, and ultimately it's Barack Obama's decision, no one else, he'll certainly take people's counsel, my suggestion is that Hillary Clinton is the best choice and would bring the most to the table and in my opinion, again, guarantee and ensure victory in November. We will be back in 2 minutes, and I hope you'll stay with us and give us a phone call. Thanks.
I need a job.
Necesito trabajo.
I would like to speak English better.
Me gustaría hablar inglés mejor.
I want to be a U.S. citizen.
Quisiera ser ciudadano de los Estados Unidos.
For over 35 years,
Por más de 35 años,
the Hispanic Committee of Virginia has been serving our community.
el Comité Hispano de Virginia ha estado sirviendo a nuestra comunidad.
Job training and placement,
Capacitación, ayuda para conseguir trabajo,
education for children and adults,
educación para niños y adultos,
immigration, naturalization, and medical referrals.
ayuda para los procesos de inmigración y naturalización y orientación sobre médicos
Are a small part of what we do.
son solo una pequeña parte de lo que hacemos.
For help, information, or to volunteer,
Para ayuda, información o para ofrecerse como voluntario,
contact the Hispanic Committee of Virginia,
comuníquese con el Comité Hispano de Virginia,
helping everyone participate more fully in American society.
ayudando a todos a participar plenamente en la sociedad norteamericana.
Hey, Lena, where's yours?
Would you notice if you were missing half your kidney function? According to the National Kidney Foundation, 20 million people have chronic kidney disease, and 20 million more may be at risk and not even know it. Anyone with high blood pressure, diabetes, or family history of chronic kidney disease is at risk. Early diagnosis is vitally important. To get the whole story, talk to your doctor and visit the National Kidney Foundation at kidney.org or call for a free brochure. Because when it comes to chronic kidney disease, you might not know the half of it.
Now back to the Inside Scoop Virginia. Call in live and let your voice be heard. Here again, your host, George Burke.
Welcome back. And we're talking about politics tonight. For many of us who are involved in the political process, the next couple of days are going to be very busy. It all culminates Tuesday night. It'll be all over but the crying. And but let's go back to this presidential a bit. As I said, we watched some history this time around already. The first African American to get the nomination. We had a woman come within inches of getting, well, the presumptive nominee, excuse me, until the Democratic Convention. It won't be official. We had a woman who came neck and neck. They battled it out. Some people complained it got too nasty, et cetera. Well, the reality of the matter is that's what happens in politics. You know, there's been the same complaints in the 11th District. Yeah, it's gotten negative. Yeah, they've been throwing thunderbolts at each other, but it'll all come out in the wash on the night of June 10th. One of the things that has worried me about both of the presidential candidates from the start is, in Obama's case, latent racism, and in Clinton's case, latent sexism. I think in some ways, in both instances, you're dealing primarily with white males. Now, white males have not voted in presidential campaigns in a majority for the Democrats for a number of elections now. But the problem is you poll them and they say, sure, we're going to vote for the African-American candidate. They walk into the polls and they'll vote for the white guy. Similarly, they'll do the same thing sometimes with women. You know, I'm going to vote for the woman Democrat. They go in and they vote for the white guy. We saw it when Tom Bradley ran in California, and the exit polls all indicated he was going to win. And then when the smoke cleared, he lost at that statewide race. Why? Because of latent racism. So I think that it's something we have to watch very closely. And again, it's primarily among the demographic of white males and white males who vote. And historically, they are white males between the ages of 30, 32, and 70. Historically, young white males have not been much of a voting bloc, and neither have young white females. Well, that's all changed this time, and I think part of that change is because of Obama's candidacy. He's brought a whole bunch of new young people into the electoral process. I hope they stay. That's the big if. I think with Obama as the presumptive nominee and all but certain the nominee, now that Hillary Clinton has conceded, when the Democrats meet in Denver at the end of August, those people will stay with him. And we hope that they will stay with the Democratic Party long after that. Hey, we got a phone caller. We have Mike from Centerville. Mike, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Bringing the conversation back to local politics, the Republican Party just tried to torpedo the transfer of the toll road out to Dulles from the government to the airport authority. Why did they try doing that, and what's that mean for the metro?
Well, I think it certainly is, if in fact they are successful, and that's Patrick McSweeney, I believe, who filed that suit. If they are in fact successful, it puts one more nail in the coffin for rail to Dulles, quite frankly. You know, some people, after the recent spate of good news, believe that this is a done deal. Well, it's not. There's a lot of things that still need to go right in order to get rail to Dulles. Go ahead.
How do the Republicans claim to be for transportation when their leadership seems to be opposing any progress on anything?
See, I don't think the Republicans are for transportation. I think the fact of the matter is that the Republicans are trying to do anything they can do to get elected, and anything that does not require them to pass any new taxes of any shape or form, even if it's like Nero fiddling when Rome burns.
And they're going to fiddle themselves right into a minority, I think.
I think you're correct, and that's what we hope.
Thank you very much. My son's crying on me. Gotta go.
Thanks. Well, folks, for the second half of the show, we now have Mark Sickles from the 43rd District. Welcome, Mark. Good to have you. Good to have you. That's all right. That's all right. I was good to my initials are GAB, and I've never been accused of not being able to talk or like listening myself talk. The only one better is a friend of mine who was a press secretary to several senators, and his initials were BS. I thought they were very apropos. For those of you who don't know Mark, Mark's been on this program several times. He is a delegate in the Virginia House of Delegates from the 43rd District. He was elected in November 2003. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I think you're on the Commerce and Labor Committee, the Health, Welfare, and Institutions Committee, and the Privileges and Elections Committee. And the thing I like about having you on the show is you're never afraid to tell the truth.
Do my best.
And you never, you don't, I have some people on and they look for political nuances and everything, and you tend to tell it straight. Let's go right to it. The special session is coming up very quickly, next couple weeks from now, right?
June 23rd.
June 23rd, and you are going to be in the thick of things. What's going to happen down there?
Well, nobody really knows. The Republicans are looking for a regional-only solution. They just want to do something in Northern Virginia and Tidewater, not the rest of the state. And the problem is that we have a transportation shortfall and disinvestment that's been going on for a long, long time. And so just the two regions is not going to be enough to do it. Right now, and going back a few years until 2002, we've been borrowing money that's supposed to be dedicated for construction. We've been borrowing it for maintenance. Under the Virginia Code, you have to first cover maintenance of your existing infrastructure before you build anything new. It kind of makes sense. And after we pay for transit, that comes off the top. For maintenance, it comes off the top. For the non-federal share of all the earmarks in the federal highway program, there's not much left. There's nothing left, frankly. And the problem with only doing a regional solution is that we would be getting less back for construction from the state, so we would just be trading one for the other.
I find it hard to believe that if you do a strictly regional approach, and I think you just alluded to that all that money's not going to come back to those regions. It's going to be bled off.
Well, it depends on how it's set
up.
It depends on how it's set up. The bill that was struck down by the Supreme Court, that money would have come directly here. Mm-hmm. And when you have a House settlement and you know what the jurisdiction the House settlement is, and you pay a grantor's tax at the settlement table, that money goes back to that jurisdiction, and it's hard to take that. The question about what we're going to be doing in Richmond, George, is how the Republicans want to structure that regional-only tax, whether they're just going to give authority to local governments to do it, which in my mind would not be a regional approach, or whether they're going to impose the taxes that they want to raise on the entire region, which we call Planning District 8, Loudoun and Prince William and into Washington, D.C.
I think, in my personal opinion, and I don't know where you stand on that, is that's the only appropriate approach, or you're going to have, I mean, there was already bickering taking place in Hampton Roads among some of these communities. Right. Up here, there's a little less, that, at least that I saw.
Yeah, there's so many people in the Republican House caucus that are even against the regional approach, or that I think it might not pass the House. much less get over to the Senate. I mean, some people think we'll pass a regional bill in the House, send it over to the Senate will add the statewide fix, send it back to the House, and the bill will be dead, and that'll take a couple days, and nothing will take place, so nothing will happen. Hope that doesn't happen. I do think there is a chance that if you had a good bill to the floor that would take care of the statewide maintenance shortfall and the 2 regions, that it might pass, but the problem is getting one of those bills out of committee.
Do you think there's a possibility of 2 separate bills, one that just addresses the maintenance issue and does something if the Republicans will even go along with that, and then something else that attempts to reinvigorate these regional authorities in whatever way possible?
Yeah, I don't think that can happen because Senator Sasslaw, Majority Leader, and he is completely opposed to that approach. More and more people in the House don't like it either. Last year we had 2 very, very high-profile state Senate races in our area, George. Chap Peterson ran strongly against this regional approach. He beat an incumbent who was the author of the regional approach. In my part of the county, we had George Barker. He was opposed to the transportation package. He won election, beat an incumbent. So we beat 2 incumbents here last year because the people in Fairfax, I think that we all are part of one state and we need a statewide solution. I agree with that. Would like to have a statewide solution. I'm just need the money in my district so bad. I might be tempted to go
along with whatever you have to do.
Well,
I understand
I'm not saying I go along with everything, but I'm probably more open to it than some of my Democratic colleagues, just because Fort Belvoir is in my district. It's expected to, it's planned to double in size by 2011, and Telegraph Road, which runs right through my district, is still a 2-lane road from Franconia to Beulah Street.
I'm familiar with it.
It borders Fort Belvoir on the back, and in the evenings now, you cannot move in our area, so we need the money.
There's so many people around the state who just don't understand what we face. And quite frankly, my son went to ODU, and so I saw it over a number of years, even the traffic congestion and the problems growing down there. I remember being at a political event down there, and Mark Warner, when he was still governor, couldn't get there because he was stuck in traffic. Right. And when the governors get stuck, Kane jokes about it now, he gets stuck.
Yeah, I've learned a little bit about the Hampton Roads problems. We don't have a uniformity up here in Northern Virginia, but we are much, much more unified, our delegation, than the Hampton Roads folks are. And they have 13 local governments down there. They don't get along with each other. You have the ones that are south of the harbor entrance, and you have those north on the peninsula. And getting through the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel is a major problem. The people in the Norfolk side don't necessarily want more traffic coming up on their side, and the people in Hampton, Newport News, Williamsburg that are commuting to Norfolk every day are tired of sitting in a long, long backup to get through that tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, they got all that water. I mean, we certainly have the bridges into Washington, D.C., but as you well know, the commuting patterns have changed. And that's part of our problem, that the commuting patterns have changed, because there's so much cross-county commuting now, because we have the tech centers that are going out to Dulles and Tysons and Springfield and Fort Belvoir growing. All these things add to our traffic congestion. But they have, what they have more of than what we have is they've got some truly rural areas and some truly urban areas.
Right, that's absolutely true.
We're going to take a break. 2-minute break. When we get back, we'll be with Mark Sickles again. We'll talk a little bit more on transportation. I want to see if we can figure out what they're going to do down there. And I may even ask him a couple of questions about the upcoming primary. So hang on with us, and we'll see you in 2 minutes.
Are we off now?
I helped turn my child's public school into a whole new kind of school. One with a curriculum that really motivates kids. One that has extended hours, 6 days a week, year-round. With loads of academic, cultural, and recreational activities. One that has support services like medical and dental right there. A school where parents' involvement is encouraged, where teachers have more time to teach, and students are excited about learning. There's just one problem. My child doesn't ever want to come home. You can help turn your school into a community school for excellence. Find out how. Call 1-877-LOVE-TO-LEARN.
It's coming. Right to your neighborhood. And when it does, you may be surprised. It's your Social Security statement of your benefits, and it's going to help you plan your financial future. Your benefit statement will tell you how much Social Security you're eligible to receive and when you'll get it. Then you'll know how much you need to save for retirement, because that's coming too. The future is in your hands. Choose to save.
The toxic fumes from this meth lab are seeping into Jamie's sinus cavity. Ammonia vapors invade her throat. Toxic gases fill her lungs. Jamie's body is deteriorating. And she doesn't even know it.
Jamie, dinner.
So, who has the drug problem now? Find out how meth affects you at drugfree.org/meth.
Now back to the Inside Scoop Virginia. Call in live and let your voice be heard. Here again, your host, George Burke.
Welcome back. My guest is Mark Sickles, House of Delegates, 43rd District. And we've been talking about the special session that's going to come up. I'm going to ask you for a few predictions. Do you think we're going to see something come out of the special session? I know that you don't have any tea leaves or crystal ball or anything else, but what's you got?
Well, I don't really know anybody who thinks we're going to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there's a chance something will come together and there will be some type of miracle, and procedurally we can figure out how to get a bill on the floor that can get 51 votes in the House, but it's not looking good. Like I said, nobody I know is expecting us to be successful. It's a real shame. We're going to be down there wasting taxpayers' money for 2 or 3 days, probably.
I mean, the Democrats, I presume you're telling me Democrats are going to work hard to try and get something through, but you're going to end up.
We're going to do our best. I mean, we need to all compromise, even people on our side, to get a package. But the big problem is the House, I think. I think that if we did send a bill to the Senate that wasn't exactly what the Senate wants, but it was real, substantial, reliable, long-term resources dedicated to this issue, that they would have a hard time rejecting that. But I don't think we can do that.
Has the governor been trying to butt some heads, or what's going on?
Yeah, well, he works behind the scenes. He gets criticized for not putting anything out there, but this is, I think, the third transportation plan that I remember that he has recently put forward. No tax increase is popular. In fuel taxes, which have been 48% of what our transportation money, where it comes from now, the federal share added to the 17.5 cents that's in Virginia, that has been a user fee, but it's very, very unpopular with gas prices at the level they are right now, and I don't think that there is any taste for doing that in the House. A lot of people in the Senate think that's the best way to go, because the other taxes aren't great either, you know. So,
hey, it's tough to raise taxes at a time when the economy's in the tank, you know.
That's right.
And it's understandable.
The good part about this, though, is all these dollars get reinvested right into our economy, and every dollar that we spend gets a huge return on its investment. It puts people to work. It's a jobs program, the best jobs program that we could have out there. We have benefited in our economy by having these two major interstate projects going on the edges of my district at the Springfield Interchange and the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. That VDOT is to be commended. You know, they get a lot of bad publicity sometimes, but that agency really has shaped up since Phil Schuchette was hired by Mark Warner, and he turned it around, and they are producing projects on time and on budget, and even people that live near the Woodrow Wilson Bridge and live near Springfield are amazed at how well those projects were managed.
Other than in Arlington and in the cities, people don't realize that VDOT maintains almost all the roads.
Right.
I mean, when I moved here 30 years ago, I mean, it took me a while to understand that cities were not part of counties,
Right.
and it took me a while to understand that the State Highway Department actually does the road in front of my house.
Right. Well,
you know?
it is. But people don't know that. This is an unusual state. I don't know how big we are geographically. We're the 12th biggest state by population, but we have the 3rd largest highway department in the United States. And that's because there are no county roads, except in a couple of cases.
Well, you drive all the way to Southwest Virginia, you realize it's a big-ass state.
It's
Where
right.
you drive from there all the way over to the ocean, you realize how big it is.
It's very big, and you know, if a bridge is in poor shape and needs to be maintained, it doesn't matter if 1,000 cars are going across it every day or 40,000.
Sure.
You have to fix it. So.
And, you know, we get this myopic view sometimes up here in Northern Virginia. Hey, you know, the people who live on South Side and live in the rural areas have just as much of a right to a piece of that pie as we do.
Right.
And, in fact, sometimes because we are so wealthy, I don't think there are many of us who feel that we don't have to take care of others within the state. We are one governmental body and one entity.
Part of the highway funding formula discriminates against densely packed areas, but 60% of the highway money is distributed by population now, and that's much, much better than the situation with education where the rich, so-called rich areas really have to pay for 80% of the local school system themselves.
Talking about that, let's we talked off air for a minute, and we have a higher education bond that's going to be on the ballot this November.
Right. It got some attention right after our veto session because we didn't finish the bond package during session because of the budget went a little bit long, and so the conferees on the higher ed bill finished and produced a very good bill that all the college presidents are very, very supportive of. Northern Virginia Community College grew by 10% last year alone. You know, it has more than 65,000 students, the second largest community college in the country. We need it up here because every person who graduates from their programs gets a job in our economy. But all the Northern Virginia kids that are academically oriented as well, not all of them, but many of them go to college in all of our public universities and colleges around the state. And this bond package is going to build much needed buildings, student activities facilities, cafeterias, dormitories, all over the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Hey, I'm a big advocate if a kid wants to go to a state school and they have met the grade, so to speak, that they deserve to be able to go, they deserve to be able to get in. Right. And we have, you know, University of Virginia, William and Mary, I mean, they're public Ivies for all intents and purposes.
Right.
And it benefits our economy, it benefits our citizens. There's a lot of benefits. Benefits our businesses with the research and stuff that goes on in these institutions.
And we fund them. I think our appropriation for UVA is something like $130 million, which is 9%, 8 or 9% of their budget.
Castine has to be out there raising a lot of money from alumni. We only have a few minutes left, and I'm sorry, before you came, I went through all these races, and I made some predictions, and so I'm not going to tell you what they are. And if anybody watched earlier, well, I'll give you the easy one first: Obama, McCain.
Well, you know, I think Obama is a special person, and a lot of the independent voters in the United States are just getting to know him now. People that follow politics closely are inspired by his life story, and if that translates as he keeps going, I think that he's going to have a big electoral college victory. I think the comparing the two people, the generational difference, the new approach that we need to foreign policy. We need to be tough, but we also need to be sensible in how we repair our relations around the world, to work with people.
That's for sure.
And young people are just inspired by him. It has been so great to see the outpouring of support. I was able to attend the rally at T.C. Williams High School, and it was just amazing, an event. And I see a lot of Democrats in Northern Virginia, as you know, George, but they're people that were jammed in that place, you know, I'd never seen these people before. He's bringing new people into the process.
A lot of passion, too.
A lot of
passion into it. I agree with you. I'm one of those. I mean, I certainly was an early supporter of Hillary Clinton's, but I said from the start that either one of these candidates was more than acceptable to me. Now, not because I supported Clinton, but I went through a whole list of different vice presidential candidates earlier, including all of our state ones. So I don't want any of them to be the vice presidential candidate. I want them to stay here. We've got
Jim
some
Webb
real
has
opportunities.
done an amazing job
I
in
agree.
his first 2 years here.
And I want to keep him in the Senate. I want to elect Mark Warner to Senate. When's the last time we had 2 Democrats, huh?
Well, it was a time when the Democrats were not what they are now, for sure.
Yeah, and but I have suggested I'm one of those who believes that Clinton would probably make the best vice president. Having said that, I'm also one of those who believes ultimately it is Barack Obama's decision to make.
Certainly.
We've got 3 primaries. One of them hotly contested in the 11th. We have a contest in the 10th. And most people don't even realize there's a primary in the 8th. You have Jim Moran, and I even apologize. I should have looked up his name on the internet. It's Matt Famoghetti or Famoghietta. They call him Matt the Democrat.
Yeah.
He's an attorney. He's a disabled person, and but he speaks, you know, quite articulately and the like. But I've predicted in that one that Jim Moran will clean up. I mean, just because the other guy doesn't have any money.
I hope people in the 8th know about it.
Enough of them have to go out and vote.
Right. I mean, there are no signs. I've gotten no mail on it. So.
But I think that they've done a little bit to do what they need to do. And Jim's been actually very gracious to this gentleman. They've had a couple of appearances together.
Probably been on your show.
No, I didn't have him. You know, I should have. I haven't had either of them on, and I really should have. Very quickly, we've got a real hot race in the 11th. The general consensus is the Democrats are going to win it as 11th District Chair. That was my pledge 3 years ago that we'd win. And we've got 4 candidates, but it really boils down to Jerry Connolly or Leslie Byrne. What are your thoughts? And I'm not asking you to pick, because I didn't. I'll tell you the truth, I didn't.
I think, well, we have 2 strong candidates, George, and Jerry has been the real leader on our Board of Supervisors with his environmental initiatives, his anti-gang initiatives, what we've done in education, even his negotiation of the transportation package that ultimately failed, but he was a key part to making, and some of it survived, and he was key to getting that out. So he has a strong record to run on, and he was just endorsed by the Washington Post yesterday. That usually goes a long way to help candidates in our area. A lot of people think the Washington Post is a liberal newspaper, a Democratic newspaper, but you know, we can all name all the Republicans that they've endorsed recently.
We got to go, and I'll put words in your mouth. Fader.
Okay.
Thank you for tonight. We'll see you next week.
I never